My name is Victor Samuel, and I'm the creative director of Victor Samuel Photography Studios. I'm the second of three children. I'm an only boy or only son, and I was born in Benue State. I'm from Benue State. Born in Benue State, grew up partly in Benue, and then my parents had to move to Delta State for work and other reasons. And so I found myself in Delta State. I had part of my primary education in NNPC staff school. Then went on to demonstration secondary school. I went back briefly to Benue State for university, briefly, very briefly, but yeah. I'm a Christian, very obviously. I think that's literally the most important thing I would say about myself. I think that I am a thinker. I observe, I learn, I think a lot, I learn a lot by observation. So I'm aware, very aware of the world around me and people, events, and different things going on. So my mind is the most active part of my person. In one sentence, I think that Victor is a student, a learner. That's what I think. That's how I'll sum up who I am. It was a culture shock the first time I came to Delta State, Warri, precisely. I think that was like 2004 or 5. I can't remember precisely when. But I know that it was a culture shock. I'm from the region where it's regarded as the middle belt of the country. That's Benue precisely. And over there we're a bit more calm generally. I think also up north. But down south, there's a lot of energy, right? That's expressed in how we relate with people. And so witnessing that firsthand, it felt a little out of place. Not because it was bad, but because I didn't understand it as a then. So people were really extra aggressive, and it was just a way of expressing themselves. So in the early days, I struggled a little bit, but because, like I said, I'm a learner and I observe, I think I learned quickly how to navigate the difference I encountered in Warri. So I would say it's also been challenging and fun, right? It's been challenging and fun. I'm really grateful that I got to stay here. Yeah. People have different stories as to how they start or do the things they do. I didn't think I had a flair for the arts growing up. I didn't have a camera growing up. I think my first interaction with a photographer and a camera was someone in our church was getting married, and he brought a photographer from out of town, and he stayed in our house. Mr. Lanre, I will never forget his name, Olarewaju. And so they had to stay in our house, right, for some reasons I didn't know. I was quite young then. I was still in secondary school, maybe mid or early secondary school. And then he brought out his equipment, and they were charging and arranging, copying and backing up files. Of course, I've always been attracted to technology, right, and gadgets and all of those things. I've had that flair for it since childhood. And so this was another piece of tech that I didn't quite understand. I knew it was a camera, but this was the first time I was seeing it up close. And it wasn't the analog cameras. This was a digital camera, what we call the DSLR. It was a Nikon D90, I can remember. And it was fascinating. This is a piece of tech. And he tried a few snapshots just to prep himself. And I observed, I liked it. He even allowed me to touch the camera. I think for me, it was more an attraction to the technology, than it was the art itself. And so that was my first interface or interaction with that. I was pretty young. Then subsequently, I think my dad had a small digital point and shoot camera, I remember now, and he didn't use it much. I was the one with it. I decided to use it, but mostly to take very funny pictures. I would take selfies of myself. I would take pictures of things around, not because I was interested in art. It was still the technology. I even took it to school sometimes, in secondary school. And so I won't say that I liked art as it were, all right? But during the final year of my secondary school, I know that my friends and school mates were talking about this person says, I'm going to this school, this university, and all of that. I wasn't very decided as to what I wanted to do in school yet. I knew I was going to be somewhere around tech, right? Something. I finally, okay, I wanted to do computer science, and I felt that wouldn't give me the hands-on experience with the technology itself. So I said, okay, computer engineering. And so we settled computer engineering. But I wasn't enthusiastic about it, really. So my friends were saying this and that. I remember having in that conversation in school, then I said, I would like to take a gap year. What that meant was that I want to not go to school immediately after my secondary school. I'll do 1 year at home. I just really want to explore. That's what I said. I want to just learn and explore what was going on. And then I know that also during my GS3 holiday, I had worked with a church member's cyber cafe. I was just helping out. So I would be there helping out. So that already helped me have time to play with technology again. So after school, like I said, very strangely, I think I still had one paper left in my NECO. I wrote WAEC and NECO. I still had one paper left. And then I am walking on Airport Road, Warri, and my mom had sent me to First Bank. And so on my trip there, I remember after my whatever assignment in the bank, I was coming back. I didn't take the route that I went through. So I went through one way, then this time I decided to go back another way for some strange reason. Of course, I'm a believer and I strongly believe that I was led because it's sort of a strange thing. So I had just this strong inclination to head back in that direction. So I headed back in that direction. Then I got to a building and I know that I stopped for some strange reason. I was looking at the building and then I saw a sign for photographer and editor wanted. And the same thing that made me walk that path. For record, I used to be a very shy person, so I wouldn't make that kind of move on my own naturally. But I did. And then I had still the sense of going up there to ask. And then I went, and it was a very funny scene. I remember then I entered the studio. The owner, I'm going to mention the name later on, but the owner of the studio sat down. I remember that his system is facing the door. There's another system on the left side. And then I walked in and I'm standing a bit far from him. And I'm like, oh, I saw your sign out for editor and photographer. And he goes, okay, are you a photographer? I said, no. Are you an editor? I said, no. Do you have any experience with photography? I said, no. Can you edit? I said, no, but I think I played around with Photoshop one time. And this is the thing. So he just dropped his head and laughed. I would never forget them. He was even carrying an afro, so I can remember precisely. He just dropped his head and he laughed. And then he said, so what are you doing here? I said, I want to learn. And then the next thing says, okay, resume on Monday. And that he would pay me a fee. For me, I was like, what's better than that, right? So it wasn't premeditated. While I said I wanted to take a gap year, I didn't precisely know that it was going to be photography. But I know strongly that I was led to that place. And that's how my journey began. It took me on, was paying me 8,000 naira, I remember. It was a big deal then, right? This was maybe 2013-ish. Right? It was paying me 8,000. What do I do? I didn't have any life expenses then, so. And then, but it was also teaching me. So, but it didn't last for long, maybe like 1 month or 2 months. Then I had to leave there. I met someone on the job there, then moved to another studio. at NRA Junction, moved to another studio. And yeah, that's how my journey started. I think that I was privileged to step into the photography industry at a time where an era was ending and a new era was sort of starting. And it favored me because of my mind. I was very curious. I would read a lot, watch a lot of YouTube videos, research a lot. I literally read, not just look at tutorials, download photography books and read. And then also ask a lot of questions, not necessarily to people, but from my learnings, I would ask questions. And I remember asking myself the question as to why some studios were closing down, right? Why did this person's business fail? And all of those questions. So that already, I had a sense of awareness as to what the industry would look like, even though I was still early, at least what the industry looked like in Warri. And I decided, so the famous, or rather, the popular thing then was that, so DSLR cameras were coming in now, and then people had DSLR cameras, and so it meant that you could shoot faster and better. And then also HDV cameras were coming out for video. So most photographers also were doing video. Some would even shoot the thing themselves. And so it was like you were offering photography and videography. And so that was what everybody was doing. And I thought of, okay, I started out learning photography. And then along the way, I think I took a break because of my health. And in that time, I started to research videography online also. That also was a time when people started to use DSLR cameras for videography, right? And so I started to learn that. And when I finally got back on my feet, I worked at a studio also. But then I had photography knowledge and a bit of videography knowledge. So I figured, oh, maybe since everybody's doing that, let's just do that. But I also know that I'd always question things. Why are we doing this? Why? You understand? And so because of those questions, I know that I started to look at places outside of Warri as to what photography was around beyond my space. And I saw that things were different in some other places. And quickly I made a decision. I know that I did that because I had a conversation with a friend about that decision. I told him that I wasn't going to do what everybody else was doing at that time. And I quickly also defined the kind of photographer that I thought I wanted to be. So I said I wanted to be a wedding photographer. And I said that I wanted to be, strange and funny then, a celebrity photographer. I didn't mean that to say that I wanted to take pictures of celebrities. No, I said I wanted to be a photographer that people wanted to do their work. And so I think that helped me mark a path for myself because I knew what I set out to do. And remember, I was trying to prove something to myself. I took a gap year to prove to myself that I could do something or anything and make sense out of it, right? So I felt like I was going to prove something to myself. And so I didn't necessarily do the things that other people were doing just because. I did things because I was trying to prove something to myself and to experiment with my learnings, yes. So that helped me focus on where I was going more than really on what was happening around me. Yeah. As at the time when I wanted to be a wedding photographer, I have to be honest that I had people around me. So one of the first influences that I had was I had worked with a studio at NRA Junction, Moscow Studios, right? And so they did a lot of things, right? It was a commercial studio, so portraits, birthdays and everything, and weddings and funerals, videography and lots of other things. So it was good because it gave me the room to experience everything, right? And then, but someone who was working with us then as an external person, he's late now, very sad. He was one of my first influences. For anyone who knows Marquin's photography, he was incredible. If Marquin's was still here, I don't know the limits to his abilities, right? He was incredible. So his mind and the excitement about weddings. I remember the first time we actually shot a wedding together, he was the videographer. I was the photographer on behalf of our studio, right? But I was supposed to be shooting photography. He was doing video, but he was so interested in the photography and he knew what to do more than I did. Of course, they sent me. And he loved the way he was interacting with clients, the way he was bringing the poses and everything. And then a few months down, I saw that he was shooting weddings himself too. And I was just blown away, really. So I forgot that this guy was supposedly a videographer. I just stayed with, in my mind, like anything you know, you seem to just have a creative mind. I would learn. And so we talked a lot, and he would just tease me, but he would always teach. He would always teach me. And then in that time frame also, in my path to learn, I started to go online and search. So there was Alakija, he's still here, but he's in the US, I think, or in the UK now. So I used to follow him on Instagram. I would look at all his pictures. I would really love his style because Markins had that kind of style in photography too. It was beautiful. There was a way they could capture the emotions, which is, I think that's what inspired how I try to shoot. The way they interpreted the emotions, captured the timelessness of that moment. And so those two people were my first sort of inspiration in wedding photography, right? And then, so they really shaped how I perceived wedding photography and storytelling, right? And then subsequently other people that you just meet online. So for one, I knew that I went as far as texting Alakija on Instagram. It was, as at that time, I think it was a bold move, but I felt, well, he knows this stuff. I think if he's a DM away, then let's try that. So I sent him a DM and he gracefully responded. And then I know that I also paid for his Patreon then. I was on his Patreon and I bought some presets. I would ask him real questions and he had one-on-one conversations and it was good. So I think those were the inspirations that I had initially, yeah. I still think that I'm trying to prove something to myself, right? So I initially started, so while a photographer, I was doing many things. I did graphics design, I did animations and all those things, maybe to just make money on the side. But I know that while working for a studio, Capture It, I also worked with Capture Photogenic. He was my first manager. In fact, he was the one that moved me to the second studio that I worked with. He was very helpful in my beginning days also. He was like a big brother then. And I worked at the studio maybe 2 years. Then I had to do a surgery. And then when I came back for surgery, I think it was in that time I learned a lot of things on my own, research and everything. So by the time I came back to the studio, worked a little bit longer. I think I also managed the studio because he had to leave to set up his studio. And then it became clear to me that I thought I was ready to start out my own thing, right? So I tried as much as I could not to bring any form of conflict of interest. So I knew I met my boss, then I told him that, oh, I think it was time, right? The plan was that I was supposed to go back to school. I was supposed to go to school, right? And so I started to process my admission and everything, but I also knew that it was time to start out fully on my own so that I didn't have any hindrance. If I was going to prove something to myself, I didn't need that hindrance to do that, right? So I started to attempt that, and so when I started looking for a name, weird names came up because I was doing multiple things at that time. I said ProLight Media, very weird thing. I saw the one design one time, not so long ago. ProLight Media, we do graphic design, photography and everything like that. And then after a while I said, okay, let's think of something that's a bit catchy and had a bit of meaning to it. So I said photoculture. And I used, for people who know me back then, maybe 2016, 17, 15 to 17, you would probably know photoculture. And I used the name, it sort of was going well until somebody called me from Lagos and said, hi, are you photoculture? Where's your student in Lagos? I'm like, no, it's not me. And then the calls kept coming and coming. So I researched on Instagram and realized there was somebody already behind photoculture with a K. Mine was with a C, the culture. And this guy was more established than I was. So I said, I would just die in this market if I continued like this. So I know that I met Mr. Solomon Abe, F Studios, and I had a conversation with him. I told him, I said, oh, this is my dilemma. I think that I should change the name, right? And I'm stuck. I don't know what name to use. And he's like, oh, your name is Victor Samuel, right? I said, why not use Victor Samuel? I didn't kind of find it cool then, right? But I thought about it after like 3 months. I made the move, changed the name to Victor Samuel Photography, and then we kickstarted that way. In my early days, that's how I started, right? As to why it was founded. It was founded because I wanted to put all of my giftings and skills and my learnings to work and build something remarkable. That's what I wanted to do. As it regards art and photography, I quickly learned that I wanted to be able to capture emotions, tell stories uniquely, and not just point a camera and shoot at someone. I wanted to, and I'm still driven by the same thing, to have someone in front of me and capture who the person is, right? The essence of the person. And the things that make up that in photography is emotions. All of the techniques in photography help you to just accentuate that, right? But you're really telling the story of this person in front of you and where they currently are and what has brought them to this person that they are. So that's the core of why I started photography. Target audience. If you are a business person, you have to constantly keep evolving. So it's evolved over the years. Primarily, I'm a wedding photographer, but more recently, I'm embracing the fact that I'm also a good portrait photographer, and I'm trying to transfer my storytelling skills also to portraits. And for me, I've always been fascinated by human beings. I've been helped along my journey by incredible people. I strongly believe that human beings are incredibly capable of amazing things, whether good or bad. But human beings are powerful. Human beings are interesting. Human beings, they hold the future of our world. But the idea is that human beings are just incredible, right? Everybody has a story. Everybody has something unique about them. And so for me, my target audience now is people who are intentional about living in whatever form it is, whether through your work, through your family. So that for me would be how people show up for their family, how they value the relationships in their life. It would be people generally who are making a good art at living. And so that would involve people who value authenticity, people who value originality, authenticity, and an investment in timeless storytelling, right? So even when I do portraits, I do other portraits, but now I'm trying to streamline it to people who allow me work with them to tell their stories, right? The authentic story of who you are. So that would be my target audience. My drive for the business. So, like I said, I'm still trying to prove something to that young version of myself, and so it's trickled down into how I think that I do business. I'm not saying that I have it all figured, but because I want to make sense of how I perceive the world, I think that I have a commitment to keep pushing myself beyond the bounds that I see. But also, I feel like I strongly have a responsibility to where I am. This city, for example, there's an overarching responsibility to the nation and the world, but charity begins at home. So I think that I sort of feel responsible for Warri, not in a large sense as the government does, but the fact that I am here, something good should happen because I'm here. And photography seems to be like my platform and tool. So I should be able to maybe create a bit of stirring in the photography industry here, inspire someone else to be able to start their journey, and then also help do what I do, which is tell the stories of incredible and amazing people, right? Offering those services to them. So that's what drives me as a person in terms of business, right? But like I said also, because of my responsibility to this place, I'm a believer. I strongly believe that God also holds me accountable to the things that He has given me, right? Which is the business and where He has put me. And so He would, except I'm expressly asked to change or stop, or maybe I need to change or stop, I would want to see the work finished, at least to know that I have done something with what I've been given. So yes, those are that's what drives me, and that's what keeps me going. To just keep getting better and to see the limits of my skill, my strength, my giftings, and my opportunities. I had to deal with many times people thought that I wasn't in worry, right? Many times, because I travel a lot for work too, people started to think that maybe I was operating out of worry. I've never lived outside worry, at least throughout my photography journey, right? I've been here. And so I'm not jackpot, right? The reason why I'm saying that is because I don't think that people generally want to say, oh, are you from Lagos? I've had that question many times. I go to a wedding and like, oh, are you from Lagos? No, I'm not from Lagos, I'm from here. Or rather, I'm here. I'm like, really? Yeah, really, we're here. So that's one. And I think that's what I can consider a misconception. I don't know any other misconceptions about me, right? Yeah, I'm a chill guy. I don't think I know any other misconceptions. So yeah. I can't remember precisely my first client. Maybe I do. My first photography client, my first wedding photography client, let's put it like that. I can't remember the first portrait client. There were a lot of them. But my first photography client, my first wedding photography client was Mr. John, right? And someone had introduced us or something, I can't remember, but it's surprisingly, I think it's a very tricky thing. So we connected, we bonded, and we did the shoot. I put all of my practice and everything into it. I was so excited, the couple were excited. We did the pre-wedding, it was beautiful. I still look at those pictures today and I'm like, wow, that's good pictures, right? 2016. Man, they're still great pictures. That's like 10 years ago. But we went on towards the wedding, and then their traditional marriage was at Oron in Akwa Ibom, right? Akwa Ibom State. And we went, and yes, true to it, my friend at that time, I think Markins was with me because I paid him to do videography. I also wanted him to be around so that as big bro, he would just watch my back. If I was, because I'm taking the client's money now to do wedding, I wasn't so experienced, but we were there and we had finished for the day. It was pretty late. We had to move from Oron to Uyo, and then we got to Uyo really late. Well, it was poor planning on different parts, not just our parts. Really not our fault, but well, we're victims of poor planning. And for some strange reason, we were trying to check us into a hotel, and somehow, in the mix of all of that, a camera got missing. It's crazy. I was just starting out, and I've never experienced this kind of drama. A camera got missing in those commuting at around maybe 1 a.m. Luckily, the clients were there, and they were the ones who arranged that transportation. So that night, we tried to look for it. The next morning, we were all over the city reporting and everything. In fact, it was the clients that were driving us around, so thank God. So yes, it meant that their job was also lost in that. But gracefully, I think for some strange reason, we took some pictures. So when we sat down waiting for the transportation to come, we're just excited about pictures. We copied some into a laptop. Just some portraits into a laptop to just look at it. And then we didn't copy everything. So the other parts, gone like that. Now, the camera was rented. It wasn't my camera. I rented this camera from Worry. And how do I go back and tell this person now? So, of course I did. And it was crazy. It was a series of paying back over a couple of months, and then I was just starting. I really didn't have a footing. So all the money I was making, I was just pouring it into paying. And sometimes the guy would threaten and everything. People would have to come and intervene, more like, oh, but you guys had an arrangement. So it's like when he gets impatient, he'll just come and like, but bro, I just made a payment and this is not the arrangement. I'm like, he doesn't care. So it was tough. I wouldn't lie. Losing a camera when you didn't have one and paying then. So that was my first official wedding client. So it was, of course, dramatic. We came back to town, we did the wedding. I still loved the pictures, I still love the client till today. We went on to build a relationship after that. Then first gear, another story. So now, I think my first piece of gear was a speed light. And then I bought a stand, and then I bought a softbox, and I was going around with that for a while. And then I now decided to buy a camera. And so I knew someone who wanted to sell a camera, a fellow photographer, and we made an arrangement. Okay, I'm going to buy your camera, I'll pay you twice. And it went well on the paying part. But just maybe 3 or 4 months down the line, I'm shooting and the camera fell apart in my hand. It didn't fall on the floor. Literally just fell apart in my hand. I'm like, whoa, this is something I just bought. What's going on? I called him and he was like, he doesn't mind. So apparently it was a bad camera that was sold to me. My God, it was crazy. I still have that camera till today. It's a Canon Rebel T3i, I can't remember. I hold it dear to my heart because I used it for that first 3 months. Okay, I think what had happened, that first 3 months I used it I really enjoyed, but I know that the lens was shaking until one day it just gave way. So that's my first piece of camera, and yeah. I have had incredible clients, and most of them have been kind enough to share their good reviews about the pictures that I take and overall the work that we do. And I think one particular one that really touched me was in terms of the art and capturing the picture itself. So there was this particular picture I noticed in trying to practice composition and storytelling. So the bride was coming out from her room in her father's house. I think some months before then, her father had passed on, and strangely, her father's picture was hanging by the door where she came out of. It was so there are a lot of pictures on that wall, and in trying to edit that picture, I had to make a decision to remove some pictures because they were distracting elements. But we just said, okay, this is her father, just left it, right? I wasn't an expert storyteller then, but I felt like this mattered. And so later she sent back and said like, oh my God, I cried when I saw the picture, and I'm like, wow. So for me, the use of my mind in paying attention was sort of rewarded with attention to like, oh wow. And then other times we've had clients who would send you a long message and say, oh Victor, my God, man. So let me just there was one wedding I shot in Port Harcourt, and we were at the reception. It was a bit of a high-profile wedding. We were at the reception, and so it's not like now we have content creators. So most times, if you are the only one there, you're the only one there. You are the center of attention, right? So the event was going on. It had gone late, and couple portraits hadn't been done because of poor planning, timing, and everything. I needed to do couple portraits. And so I walked up to the couple while they were sitting down, and I was trying to tell them that, oh guys, I think we need to steal time to get your portraits done. And the reception was going on, not really that there wasn't really anything specific going on. I just know that the reception was just going on. And then all of a sudden, the bride's uncle just carried the microphone and started to rain, for lack of better words, insult on me. What are you doing there? You're distracting the couple. And so he literally just did that in front of everybody. I was standing in between everybody. And then when we're taking pictures, he just came out like harassing me and everything. I didn't lose my cool. I was chilled about it. I still tried to navigate my way. But I know that after that, the couple had called me, and not just to apologize, but they thanked me for being able to handle the situation. And to them, they felt that that was something that they appreciated even more than the pictures. So that's another opportunity from that's another time too. I don't think that any problem is, I don't think problems manufacture themselves. It's usually caused by people, right? And so what I mean by that is that people have been my hardest lesson, right? Whether good or bad. People have been my toughest lessons. So early on in my career as a photographer, I know I struggled with communication skills, right? Because I used to be very introverted. And so I wouldn't say much, I just keep quiet through the whole thing. And then, so that was challenging. And so that would mean that sometimes I wasn't communicating properly with my clients as I should. And so that would lead to other problems. So that's generally in that direction. I had that problem, that challenge that I needed to deal with if I was going to grow. Then another problem that I would really talk about was not paying attention to the business side of things early enough, right? Later on, I started to take some more business-related classes and all that, but it had already cost me too much, right? Poor customer experience, dissatisfied clients, and just generally, it really affected my brand sometimes, right? So those are challenges that I had. I don't think there's another one that ranks as high as that for me. Yeah. Initially, when I started, after the first and second studio, I used to close very late, and I particularly want to stay late longer than everyone because that meant that I had the opportunity to use the system in the studio a little longer and learn more. But my parents didn't have it. I was still quite young then, so my dad got upset and like, you see this thing that you're just passing time with? No more. And then I was grounded from that. And at some point, it looked like my photography career was over before it even began. And I remember that I was so sad. I would be sad. Like my elder sister, I called her, I told her that this was going on. And then I told her how miserable I was and everything. And she would call my dad and say, your son is miserable. But that didn't solve the problem. I think the problem got solved when I decided that, you know what, we're going to fight through this. I fought through it. I pushed and kept pushing. And I think for me, that has been my MO all the years. I've had incredibly tough moments, right? From losing a space that I really loved, right? One of my studios, places that I really love. I had great plans from it. Somehow we lost the space. It was tough, right? Then other times when you also face real business challenges, lose money. I've had to refund to clients on not more than one occasion. It was tough. I've had to, like I said, lose equipment in that time. It was really tough. And then when you have to be faced, or rather when you have to face the realities of some of the disadvantages of your peculiar region. I'm saying, as at when photography was starting then, it wasn't what it is now in Warri. You understand? But to push through that, I think those were tough times. What kept me going was just keep going, right? Keep going. But one other thing was that I always had a picture of what it was going to turn out like. And I think I got that picture not because I was particularly gifted in that thing, but I'm saying that I interacted with people who had it better for them. I had friends and mentors in Lagos. I went for conferences in Lagos, Abuja. So those things constantly expounded my horizon and told me that there was something I could still reach for. And so that helped me. You know what? If we're not seeing that thing that we saw there yet, that means it's still in front. So let's keep going. Yeah. Fulfilling my promise to myself. That's number one. Yeah, fulfilling my promise to myself that I wanted to start this journey and make something remarkable of it, right? That's number one. Number two is the business of it, right? Client deadlines, client deliveries, team management, right? Bills to pay, right? Those things keep you up at night. And then to top that list also, maybe not top the list, but to maybe second on the list would now be the fast changing industry. The pace at which the photography industry is changing is incredible. You have to be on your toes every time, right? You have to be on your toes every time. New trends, new technology, just generally the change, right? And you have to be thinking about, okay, what does this mean? What does this new thing mean? How does that affect me now and in the long run and in the thing that I'm trying to achieve? And then those things actually do make you think, right? From the beginning, I told you, I'm a believer, not just a Christian, I'm a believer. And for me, that's the central thing in my life, not just my business. No, it's the central thing in my life. It's been my source of strength, wisdom, and direction, right? My faith has guided my overall purpose. And so I know that I'm living not for myself, I'm living for someone else, right? And so ultimately, whether it's my plans or my worries or my intentions, ultimately there's someone that I'm accountable to. So it might look like it's my plan, but ultimately there's someone that I'm accountable to. So that has guided me even down to the times when I've not really done well as I should. I'd go back and I feel like I'm not living out my faith properly, right? Or that I'm not putting in the excellence that I'm supposed to, because as a Christian, I strongly believe that God is committed to excellence, and so should we. And yeah, so it's guided everything around my business, right? Sometimes I've had to pray about certain clients as to whether to take a job or not, or to take a deal or not, right? It's not exactly a rosy thing, but trust me, it's fulfilling. Favorite moments, there are countless of them. I think friends along the way, right? I remember when I started my photography, my business personally, like I had friends. There's Rookies Makeover, she's in Canada. There's Aeroback Studios, Kelvin. There's Autograph Studios, Jefe. Those guys, they were my guys in my early days, right? You're seeing my friends, I honor them. There's Marvin Films. So those were people that in the days where there was nothing, particularly Rookies and Marvin, we formed a 3-tag team, right? Where we would just help each other really, right? It started with me and Rookie doing a lot of collaborations. We'd spend our money, we'd just spend our money to do collaborations, do work on projects together, and just push it, sponsor it, and just do that. Share our learnings together. We spent a lot of time together, just learning and growing together. She's a makeup artist and she was a gala artist at the time too. So she would do that, I'll shoot, we'll put up. So we'll walk up to models, say hi to them. You spend money, you buy food for the model, you give them transport, but it's not, you're just trying to put out work. And then we started to get attention, right? We started to get attention, and sort of, if Rookies is booked, Victor obviously is the photographer. If Victor is booked, who's makeup artist is Rookies, and then Marvin was pulled into as a videographer. And those are good memories. Those are good memories, right? Those are really good memories. It's the growing from nothing to something stage, right? Really beautiful memories then, pushing yourself and all that. Then, of course, I love to travel. So all of my trips and travels were incredible moments too. Yeah. My name is Victor Samuel, and I'm the creative director of Victor Samuel Photography Studios. And this is my story.